Have you ever caught him watching you when he thought you were not paying attention? That small shift in his voice when he talks only to you. The subconscious does not tell lies. Even if his words are careful, his soul has already made a choice, and that choice is you. What if I told you that the man who sometimes confuses you with mixed signals is actually more in love than even he understands? Carl Jung found that our deepest feelings skip the logical mind and show themselves through tiny actions we cannot control. When a man's soul recognizes yours, his body reveals what his lips have not yet admitted. Many women think silence means he does not care, when in reality it may be the exact opposite. The most real kind of love does not announce itself with huge displays. It quietly changes his whole world in ways neither of you fully grasp until now. These are the clear signs that his soul has picked you. Even if his mind has not realized it yet, that man who may confuse you with his quiet times, his faraway mood, or sudden closeness might be much more in love with you than he himself thinks. Because love does not always arrive through logic or plain words. Sometimes it moves in through dreams, through the way he looks at you when he does not realize it, through how his conduct changes with you, and only with you. Jung said that what is not made conscious shows up in life as fate. And this applies to love too. If he has not yet become aware of what he feels, his soul is already acting for him. Before we go further with the video, I want you to comment on this word resonance. Do it not just for me, do it for yourself. Because when you write a word that moves you, you give your soul permission to acknowledge what it already knows. Comment resonance. If something inside you stirred when you heard this message, if some part of you felt seen in these words, write resonance and let the universe answer. So, how can you know if he's truly in love? What signs does his inner self, his heart, his deepest feelings give you? Even if he never says it out loud, this won't be a shallow look at things. I won't talk about text messages or romantic cliches. We're going to dive into what Jung called the symbols of the soul, into how a man shows himself when something within him moves every time you're near, even if he doesn't fully get it himself. And before we move on, I want you to pay attention to each sign, because often the mistake we make is waiting for speeches, promises, or big acts, and we miss the most important thing, the way someone changes their inner world when you are in it. Jung taught that true love isn't something we pick. It isn't programmed. It appears as an unavoidable force that breaks down our walls and connects us to the most basic part of who we are. So, open your intuition, your feelings, and watch the following. And if that man does even one of these things, if you've seen him react in any of these ways, it means he's deeply moved by you and probably much more in love than his logical mind is ready to admit. I'll show you these signs one by one, from the most quiet to the most obvious. It's not just about knowing whether he loves you, but about seeing how someone's soul reacts to real love. When a man is deeply touched by a feminine presence that changes him, even if he can't put it into words, his behavior begins to change in ways even he can't stop. And the first major sign is in how his focus moves. It's not the obvious kind of attention, the kind that tries to impress or get noticed in return. It's something more quiet, more real. He starts seeing details that others miss. How you really feel even when you say "I'm fine." How you changed your hair even if you didn't talk about it, or if something in your voice sounds different. This kind of focus doesn't come from shallow interest, but from a deep bond. Jung believed that true feelings show themselves so we can understand them. That's why this kind of man reacts from within, not from a plan. He doesn't need to see you every day to keep you in mind. You might notice that he brings you up out of nowhere, asks about something not yet finished, or simply shows up without a clear reason. He's not doing it out of habit. His subconscious is pulling him toward you. He's working through something he hasn't named yet, but it's drawing him in. This isn't obsession or being needy, it's emotional resonance. Your energy has touched something in him, and it's starting to speak without words. Another strong sign is how he starts to change when he's with you. Some men act the same with everyone, but when a man is truly in love, even without knowing it, his behavior with you becomes different. He may seem more open, more soft, or even more clumsy, because true love doesn't make someone look perfect. It takes away their defenses, and that makes them more human, more real. If you notice that he only lets his guard down with you, if your quiet times together feel deep rather than uncomfortable, you're seeing something far beyond a passing interest. But there's more. Jung believed that what the soul loves, it keeps safe. And this man might begin to worry about you in ways that don't seem logical. He might want to make sure you're warm, that you're not walking alone at night, that you're eating well. It's not about control or trying to seem important. It's about something inside him that has begun to feel responsible for your safety, as if his balance somehow depends on yours. And when that happens, when a man starts caring for you with that quiet care, without expecting anything in return, without looking for praise, it means that deep within himself, he's already made you a part of his inner world. Even if he doesn't say it, even if he doesn't get it, even if he won't admit it, his soul is already tied to yours on a level beyond logic. And so if you're seeing these signs, if every word moves you, don't take it lightly. Don't be confused by his lack of words. What's happening inside him is far bigger than it looks. Stay with me, because what's coming next will show even deeper signs, ones that only a real bond can bring to light. There are moments when a man doesn't need to say anything at all for his energy to give him away. It's as if his presence speaks for him. Maybe he hasn't told you he loves you. Maybe he hasn't made big promises or plans, but there's something in the way he looks at you, in how his breathing changes when you get close, in how he stays quiet beside you without needing to fill the space. And that silence isn't the absence of words. It's being fully there. It's his soul connecting to yours with nothing in the way. Because when a man is more in love with you than he dares to say, his body says it all. Watch how he reacts when someone else talks about you. If you're in a group and someone says something good about you, watch his eyes. If someone talks down to you, notice how his face changes. Love doesn't have to be conscious to protect what it values. His instinct turns on even if his mind is still confused. Jung said that the subconscious has its own ways, and often we are led by feelings we haven't yet been able to name. If a man reacts even with just a look when someone says your name, it's because something inside him has already decided that you matter more than he thought. Another clear sign is in his effort. When someone feels something real for you, they try. Even in the little things, it doesn't have to be huge. It's in how he listens to you, in how he remembers things you said long ago, in how he moves his time for you, even in how he says sorry when he feels he didn't do enough. That quiet effort shows more than 1,000 words, because someone who doesn't feel anything doesn't move. But someone who loves, even without understanding it, makes room, not out of duty, not to impress you, but because their inner world is already changing its shape to include you. And here comes something very few people notice. When a man is deeply touched by your presence, he begins to change even when you're not around. His routine moves. His thoughts become more scattered. He might seem distracted, more thoughtful, more restless. It's as if something has been turned on within him, and he doesn't know why, but you're there, present in his mind, in his feelings, in the things that used to be automatic and now no longer are. Jung spoke of the power that internal figures have to change a person even without being there physically, and you, without trying, have become a figure that lives in his inner world. Even if he doesn't say it, even if he denies it, you're already there. That's why you shouldn't be fooled by surface behavior. Many men stay quiet about what they feel, not because they lack feeling, but because it's hard for them to turn the language of the soul into the language of words. And this is where, if you're paying attention, you can see past it. You can feel what he himself hasn't yet found, that his heart has already decided to stay because there are more signs that reveal this quiet yet powerful love. And once you understand them all, you'll see the full picture. One that may forever change how you understand love. There's a change that happens in the heart of a man in love that's rarely seen at first. It's slow, almost hidden, but deeply strong. That change appears when he starts letting go of certain behaviors that once defined his daily life. Maybe he used to avoid sticking around. Maybe he always kept emotional distance from others. Or maybe he simply lived in a kind of comfortable solo life. But since you've come into his life, something has been moving inside him. It's no longer enough to only think of himself. He starts to open mental and emotional room that he previously wasn't willing to share. And he doesn't do this as a trade. He does it almost without thinking, as if his soul is adjusting to a new reality, calling to him from deep within. Watch if he has begun to share parts of his life with you that he doesn't show anyone else. I'm not talking about boring details, but private parts of his story, his fears, his regrets, his deepest dreams. When a man is connected to you on that level, he begins to show his human side without masks. Not because he wants you to see him as perfect, but because he's beginning to trust in a way he's never felt before. At that point, it's no longer about winning you over. It's no longer a game of flirting. It's letting go. And that surrender, though it may seem small, is the greatest proof that something inside him has shifted. Jung said that the soul needs a mirror to know itself. And you, through your presence, become that mirror. He begins to see you, and at the same time, he begins to see himself in a new way. There's another detail that often goes unseen: how he reacts to your feelings. Not everyone knows how to deal with someone else's emotional strength. But when a man is truly involved with you, he begins to sink emotionally without even realizing it. He feels your joy and smiles with you, but he also becomes uneasy when he feels your sadness. Even if he doesn't have the right words, his energy moves when yours does. He may not say, "Are you okay?" every time, but you'll see it in how he looks at you, in how his voice gets soft, in how he comes closer without knowing what to do, but still wanting to do something. That wish to stand with you in your feeling, even without knowing how, is one of the most honest signs of subconscious love. And perhaps the most revealing sign of all is what happens when you're not around. Watch how he acts in your absence, if he brings you up in natural conversations, if he saves things to tell you later if something happens, and you're the first person he thinks of in those moments when there's no physical presence to trigger it, and you're still alive in his inner world, his thoughts, his feelings, then there's no doubt he's more in love than he realizes, because what stays in absence is stronger than what's said in presence. And that's not chance. That's the soul speaking. All of this isn't about guessing what someone feels. It's about learning to read with your heart, because love often doesn't arrive with words or being sure. It comes with signs the soul sends when it begins to recognize another soul. Stay close, because what comes next will show how love acts when it can no longer be held in. There's a stage where a man, even without knowing it, begins to need your presence, not as a habit, but as a way to stay balanced. He may not say it with romantic lines or practiced speeches, but something in his energy moves every time you're far away. Maybe he won't tell you directly, but you'll notice it in his restlessness when he hasn't heard from you, in how he shows up just as you're starting to forget him, in how any excuse seems good as long as it brings him back into your circle. Even for a second. It's not obsession. It's not being clingy. It's a real bond. the kind that comes from such a deep place that even he can't explain why he thinks of you so much. And that, according to Jung, makes perfect sense because the subconscious isn't held by logic or time. When a true feeling takes root there, it begins to shape thoughts, urges, and choices. And one of the most powerful ways this shows up is in how that man begins to care about your opinion, even on things that don't directly involve you. He might start to share his life plans and ask what you think, not to impress you, but because he truly wants to know if they fit with yours. Not out of a plan, but because quietly you're becoming a guiding figure in his world. He might even start opening up about his doubts, his insecurities. Not because he sees you as a doctor or doesn't know how to handle his feelings, but because his soul has recognized in you a safe presence, someone with whom he can be completely himself, no armor, no act. And when a man reaches that level of openness with you, there are no more walls. Because love isn't built on being certain. It's built on the ability to be open without fear. That trust he places in you, even without knowing it, is one of the purest signs of deep love. But what confirms everything is how he starts to imagine his life with you, even without you bringing it up. You'll notice it when he talks about the future, and without meaning to, says things like, "Someday I'd love to go to this place." And in that picture, you're already there. He doesn't say it directly, but he hints at it. Those little phrases, those natural mental pictures, are open doors to his inner self. In his mind, you're already part of the road, not as a temporary guest, but as a steady piece of his perfect world, and you don't need to push him or ask for clarity. Because when the soul loves, it shows in the simplest acts. If he's doing this, if his energy, his actions, and his focus are naturally leaning toward you, then what exists is real. Even if he doesn't fully understand it yet, even if he hasn't found the nerve to say it out loud. Because when the soul has already picked, everything else is only a matter of time. And in that time, you can see with the eyes of the soul what the mind still doesn't dare to say. Stay with me, because there's still more to find. When a man starts looking at you as if you're something he doesn't want to lose, something begins to shift in the way he relates to you. And that change isn't on the surface. It's not about being more cuddly or reaching out more often. It's about how his soul begins to fix his world around your life. Because when a feeling is real, the other person stops being just a part of life. They become a core part of it. You'll see it in how he starts putting you first, even without saying it. Maybe he's having a busy day. Maybe he's pulled in many ways. But still, he shows up. Not because he has to, but because he simply doesn't want to not be there. Because being with you, even in silence, brings him peace. And peace is one of the most forgotten feelings in love, but also one of the most important. Love isn't just about butterflies or excitement. True love, the kind that forms in the subconscious, the kind Jung studied and understood as a force that changes us, also shows itself in the calm that comes from being with someone who doesn't have to change to be loved. When he feels at peace with you, when he feels that he can let his guard down, that he can be imperfect and still be accepted, he starts to see you as home, not a house, but a heart's refuge. And when that happens, he begins to do something most people don't notice right away. He starts matching with you without you even asking. Maybe he begins to enjoy the things you enjoy. He becomes curious about your interests, your ideas, what makes you feel alive. He doesn't lose who he is. He just finds the beauty of sharing what was once only his. This isn't a coincidence. According to Jung, when two souls begin to sound together, inner borders begin to soften, and that's where real closeness is born. It's not just about attraction, but about that quiet sense of belonging that doesn't need to be explained. Also, pay attention to how he stands up for you when you are not there. Maybe you don't hear it, maybe you don't see it, but in small talks, in moments when you're not even around, he takes a side for you. Not because he wants to get something, but because deep inside he feels that protecting you is part of protecting what he's begun to love. Love doesn't always yell. Sometimes it simply acts. Sometimes it speaks through acts no one else sees. And that kind of love, the one that protects you even in quiet, is the most powerful of all. So if he does this, if he changes his routine without realizing it, if he cares for you in unseen ways, if he thinks of you before making big choices, don't ignore it. You are standing in front of an emotional truth that even he may not fully get yet. And it's in that space where the purest part of love is born, in the part of us that hasn't yet been limited by fear, by logic, or by old wounds. Stay here because we're about to reach the deepest signs of a love that can no longer hide. And when you arrive at that point where all the signs begin to tie together, when you look back and realize that this man has changed without even noticing it, that his actions, his quiet times, his smallest acts speak louder than any words, that's when you understand the most important truth. That real love doesn't always show up with drama. It doesn't always arrive with fireworks or perfect speeches. Sometimes it comes as a quiet presence, as silent care, as kindness that doesn't need people watching. And when a man is more in love with you than he realizes, his soul has already made a choice that his mind is only beginning to understand. Jung taught us that the subconscious does not lie, that within us lives a truth that shows itself through symbols, feelings, and actions we don't always get, but that are clearly real. If you're seeing these signs, if you felt this bond, if something within you knows that what's happening between you two is not a coincidence, listen to that. Trust your gut. Because often what we call doubt is simply the mind trying to understand what the soul already knows. In the end, what we look for isn't the perfect speech about love, but the real sound of a soul that has quietly picked ours. The signs aren't written in big announcements, but in the small change of priorities, in the pull that brings him back to you, even when logic has no answer. Jung understood that the deepest bonds go beyond our awake mind. They come from the place where our truest self lives, untouched by fear or clever planning. When a man fixes his inner world to make you a core part of it, when his energy changes both when you are there and when you are gone, when he shows you his soft side without armor, that is love before words. It is recognition at the level of being. And if you're still here, if you haven't left, it's because somewhere in your soul, this message is reaching you, not with empty words or dramatic promises, but with that calm knowing that says, this is true. Because when love is real, it doesn't force, it doesn't demand, it doesn't need praise, it simply stays. It becomes a constant. And even on the quietest days, its presence speaks loudly, a force that doesn't try to win you over, but wraps around you before you even notice. That's when you understand that love, true love, is not just a feeling, it's a language. And that language doesn't need words. You see it in the smallest moments, in how he pauses just a second longer to look at you when you're not watching, in how he remembers the things you thought he forgot, in how his look shifts the moment you walk into the room. What seems small to others becomes a deep echo inside you. And no, it's not about being perfect. Real love isn't built on being perfect. Sometimes there are doubts, strange silences, temporary gaps. But even in those pauses, in those cracks, there is a presence that doesn't fade because what is born of the soul doesn't break with the first storm. Jung spoke of the journey to find one's true self, but he also taught us that on that path we meet others with whom we fit at a level beyond logic. And when that happens, when two people who are healing meet, They don't look to finish each other. They look to walk together. That man who is more in love with you than he knows may not always be able to say it. He might not find the right words. He might struggle with his own fears, with wounds that aren't yours to fix, with ghosts saying that he's not enough. But if you watch with an open heart, you'll see his actions prove his fears wrong. That despite the fear, he stays. That even in doubt, he never fully leaves, because his soul has already begun to recognize you as home. And when one soul finds a home in another, something deep begins to change. It's no longer about being together because you have to, but about sharing from a place of freedom. He's not looking for you to fix him, but to walk beside him. And you, without even knowing it, become a mirror. Someone who reflects not only his dark parts, but also his light. Someone who reminds him who he is beneath all the noise of the world. That's why when he feels calm with you, it's much more than just a sign of liking you. It's an act of trust, an act that, according to Jung, is full of symbols and deep meaning. Because we only lower our guard for what we feel is safe, what we feel is true. And if he does that with you, if he shows you his mistakes, his slips, his contradictions, don't see it as a weak point. It's a way of letting go that few dare to offer. Many are still chasing love that tries to impress, that yells, "That is too much." But you're seeing something different. A love that stays, that remains when no one is watching, that chooses without needing a show. A love that doesn't promise you the stars because it's already started building you a safe place on earth. And that love, though it may seem quiet, is huge because it doesn't depend on the moment. It depends on the bond. There will be days when he won't know how to act. He may move away. He may ask himself if he's enough for you. But even in that back and forth, something stays. A hidden thread that pulls him back, that makes him try again. Because when the soul picks, the mind eventually says yes. And you who feel this, who see these signs, you're not making things up. You are receiving a quiet language that only open hearts can read. You are standing in front of a bond that goes beyond names, beyond timing, beyond being sure. You are in the presence of something growing from within, like a seed that doesn't need to be pushed to flower. Maybe he hasn't fully realized it yet.